What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. All right. Today's video is going to be one of those very touchy topics that I rarely touch on, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff. Excuse me. And, there's been a lot of stuff on the violence of California prisons lately. People talking about all the murders, all this stuff, right? And so the question today is, was it a good thing for the Big Four to be let out of the shoe in California prisons? For those of you that don't know who the Big Four are, maybe you could Google it. I don't say the names of those organizations. I refer to them as the legends, and I mean for every faction. So for everybody, that's the legends for all of the criminal world out here in California and most of the Southwest. Okay. Now, in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s, the legends were running around on the main lines. They were all out on the yard. There were times in the 70s where they would snatch up one of the organizations, maybe two, throw them in the back, and that'd say the shoe, whatever. Let the other two groups do their thing. It was a thing where they were trying to figure out how, I guess this is how they led. It all led up to slamming them down, validating them, and implementing the indeterminate shoe if you were validated as a gang member or an associate of the Big Four. For those of you that aren't aware in California, aren't from California and aren't aware, or just aren't aware of the whole prison thing, there were decades. Again, it started in the 80s where they slammed these dudes down. If you were identified by the California Department of Corrections as being a member or an associate of one of the Big Four organizations in California, you would get sent to the hole. You didn't have to break a rule. You didn't have to stab anybody. You didn't have to engage in any violence. You didn't have to do nothing. You could get put in the shoe, in the hole, to die. Never get out. And it could be based off of a confidential informant, confidential information, tattoos, various things. You are not going to be given the right to cross-examine any witnesses. You weren't going to be given the opportunity to know what all of the evidence was that was used against you before it's used against you. You were not going to be able to suppress anything. It was going to be the CDC, the California Department of Corrections, was going to put together a packet. They're going to snatch you up from your cell, put you in the hole, put together a packet of information that they gathered somehow, some way. They would send it off to Sacramento, and Sacramento would review it and say, yup, you know what, you're right. This is a kangaroo court. It was a kangaroo court system. Men who weren't members of these organizations were slammed down. What you see in El Salvador is super duper extreme. But one of the things they did over there is they basically erased any rights. I don't know their constitution, so I can't say what rights were, but whatever little rights, or whatever they had coming by their government, their president, their government said they don't have nothing coming, round them all up and throw them away. The CDC did that. The CDC did that. They pretended that it was a just and fair system. It wasn't. And men were housed for decades and decades in the shoe. Men were driven insane in the shoe. Men committed suicide in the shoe because of this label and then validation. I remember, when people are so stubborn, I remember having a conversation with a neighbor of mine in the shoe, 1997. If you went to death row, you got the Cadillac draw, meaning you could spend the A1A amount, meaning the maximum amount of money that you can spend in the canteen. They were allowed to do that. They got phone calls all the time. They got contact visits. They got death row, you guys. But if you were a lifer and you were found guilty of being a member or an associate and you were validated, you were thrown in the shoe to die, to sit in them cells until you died, right? That's a death penalty. And I remember having a conversation with an older dude. He had been down since the early 80s. He had only lasted like 2 months and got, I'm spitting like Wes Watson. He had like 6 months, maybe 4 months. I don't remember what it was. And he got validated because he was stabbing a lot of people, putting in a lot of work. He wasn't a member. He was just, in the early 80s, and people were doing a lot of things, very dangerous things. And he participated in the violence part, and he had been in the shoe ever since. And I asked him, I said, hey, have you ever thought about putting in a 602? A 602 is an inmate grievance, inmate appeal. And he was like, for what? Automatically his defenses went up. For what? And I said, these vatos on the road, they get all these privileges. You're validated, homie. You basically have a death sentence. You guys should fucking try to put something together, man, and say, hey, you want phone call action. You want to be able to have a contact visit. That vato was so butthurt. He was so angry that I would even suggest that he 602 something, that he file an inmate appeal. And that's the reason why people were in there for so long. That's a part, I'm going to just say that, is the old mentality of you don't file a 602, you just tough it out. So getting back to the question at hand, is it a good thing that those men were let out? I, in my heart, believe it was. I believe that, if the CDC wanted to enact a policy wherein they remove people from their cells and they restrict their ability to see their family, make phone calls, this and that, all the things that they did, that it should have been an outside entity. There should have been the opportunity to cross-examine, to evaluate evidence and put up the best argument, put up the best defense, and let it be fair. This is America. Again, men were driven insane. Men committed suicide. I'm not saying they were angels, but they were somebody's son. They were somebody's father, uncle, brother, whatever, grandpa. It's not for me or you to judge who they are, what their heart is. That's for God to do that, right? But I know that now, people are saying, well, shit, they let all these dudes out and look at how much violence is taking place. I don't see it that way. Me having spent decades in prison, the violence that you're seeing now is the same violence you would have seen had they still remained in the shoe, only it would have taken longer. So a guy that gets hit tomorrow, back in the days, someone would have to write a letter. That letter took however long it took to get to get to that person. And that person reviewed it and discussed with whoever he wanted to discuss things with up there. Then he would send a response. In the meantime, that guy might know, the guy that's going to get hit might know he's in trouble, so he sends a letter. and it clouds everything. See, what happened now is you don't have to wait, and you don't get they don't get the ability to create a smoke screen like they could before because of the delay. And I know I'm in trouble. I'm going to get at this dude. And no, now the authority, I don't want to say that. I don't use that word. The powers that be that make the decisions in blue, meaning the convict side, they're right there and they see it. So you can no longer pencil whip and create a false narrative and drag it out. No. So it's the same violence. It's just, it's happening quicker. I don't know. People should not fool themselves. Prison will be prison. It is a world where it's survival of the fittest. And this is not in contradiction with the other videos where the whole, what is it, Prisony land and the whatever that European type of incarceration that they're trying to bring over here. I'm for that. I told a story. I've told it a bunch of times, man. An OG that I had a lot of respect for. He said, "Don't take a man to survive in prison, because it got a place for everybody." So, you know, when they talk about bringing in these new things, first of all, back to, I am glad they let everybody out. I think that was a shitty thing that they did. It wasn't fair. And I'm glad that's over with. But institute whatever, whatever programs give people an opportunity to realize their self-value. The ones that don't want to know that, the ones that are fine with the way things have gone, they'll continue to do those things. But giving people an opportunity to say, hey, man, yeah, I would like to go to college. I would like to get that degree. I would like to send that to my kid and say, you know what? I know I'm not there for you, but I'm not just wasting time in here. Doesn't make them soft. And maybe, who knows, something else changes down the line where more people get access or action to coming home. But I don't want to get in the weeds. I just want to say that from my experience, me having seen the kangaroo court chew people up, men, just slam men down because they felt like, oh, he must know somebody. He's been down. He's been in the shoe a few times. He must know somebody. The CDC for decades played a very, very, very dirty game. If there were certain convicts that they had fear of, they would just plant evidence on them. Create a whole packet that's all fake. Or that came from a whole different, somebody got caught with some shit. Boom, we're going to use the same packet. We're going to get that guy. And this is the number one guy we really want. That was never fair. And there might be some people that, are going to get in the comment section and, cry me a river, fuck them, they deserve it. Fine, that's fine. But then you can't cry when somebody gets out of prison after being treated like an animal and gets out in your community and acts like one and hurts somebody in your family or victimizes you. This is what you wanted. Fuck them. According to you, fuck them. Their animals, treat them like it. Okay, well, then they treated you the way an animal treats what they don't value. I don't want to make this too long of a video, but I did want to put my 2 cents in this. With all the violence and all the murders that are happening in California Department of Corrections, maybe this is the thing that will get some people to think twice about getting in them streets, about pulling guns out on people, pulling knives out, beating people, robbing people, cheating people, whatever it is. Maybe this is just going to be another one of those things where they're like, you know what? Nah, that person say that's not for them because they know what they're made of. I remember having to tell one of my little cousins. He got jumped into my neighborhood. And I had to tell him, you're not built for it. It ain't a game. Whatever you think you're going to do running around the neighborhood, you come to the joint where the big boys are at, make sure, because I don't see it in you. But you'll find out once you get here. And he changed his life around. And I'm proud of him for doing that, right? But anyways, that's my video for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out.